this is Gary with Aldan American. Today we've got this red 67 Chevelle in here. Our friend Manny brought it in. It's a nice little car. He recently purchased it. The car drives a little bit poor. We have a feeling that the bushings, the ball joints, the suspension needs a little bit of help. So we decided we're going to do coilovers. We're going to do the Performance Online A-arms. Follow along, see how we do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brake caliper off and I'm going to hang it off to the side. Makes it a lot easier to work on the coilover kit and the control arms when we put everything together. I made this little hook out of brake line tubing. It makes a nice, strong, secure way of holding the caliper so you don't put any stress on the brake hose while you have it apart. I'm going to take the spindle and all of the upper and lower A-arms, the springs, the original shocks, they're all going to come loose because we're replacing everything. I want to show you our double adjustable coilover kit that we're going to be installing into this Chevelle. So this is our stem style front shock. It is a double adjustable, so it has a rebound adjuster on the top, a compression adjuster on the bottom, and the way this spring is designed, the top of our coil spring fits in the original upper pocket. We have the thrust bearings that are going to be sitting between the spring and the spring seat, which will make it easier to make our adjustment for ride height. And then the spring sits on top of the spring seat just like that. So this is going to allow us to adjust our ride height from between about stock ride height to about a 2-inch drop. So to remove the knob for assembly, what we're going to do is unscrew it. So it just unscrews from the top. We don't want to take and loosen up the set screws because that's the clicker adjustment. And when you go to reassemble it, you're going to put the knob back in. Because this shock has been designed for the Performance Online tubular control arms that are dedicated for a coilover kit. Instead of having a T-bar on the bottom, we have a sleeve and a bolt that goes through. The bolt kit is included with the kit. On to the rear. So this is our rear coilover shock. On the upper side, we have our rebound knob. There's 11 points of adjustment or 10 clicks. When you go full counterclockwise, that is our softest position. And as you rotate the knob clockwise, it will increase the dampening or make the shock stiffer. On the bottom, we have our compression knob. What the number reads at the 12 o'clock position, that is going to be your adjustment. These are our rear lower brackets. So it fits where the original lower trailing arm bolt mounts to the axle housing. It uses the original shock mount location for mounting the bracket. And we mount the shocks to the inboard side of the trailing arm. So what it does is it allows you to run a little bit more back spacing on the wheel, so you have a little bit more tire and wheel clearance to the inboard side. The kit also includes our rear upper brackets, as well as a spanner wrench for adjusting your spring seat in order to raise or lower the car. All new grade 8 hardware and thrust bearings. So I'm now going to install our Performance Online upper control arms. They mark them with a little sticker that says passenger side or driver's side. They come assembled with the Delrin bushings and the cross shafts already. I'm going to put the ball joint on after I set it in the car, and I'll show you how I do that. So when I go to put it back together, I'm going to put the alignment shims back in the same position as they came out, and that way it'll give us a good starting point when we go to the alignment shop to have the front end realigned. I'm now going to install the upper ball joint. I just didn't want to chase the A-arm around on the bench, tightening everything down. The arm's nice and secure here, so it makes it a little easier. One of the things I've found from working on these older cars is these tabs that hold the lower control arms, front and back, they have a tendency of getting squished in from tightening the nuts and bolts against the bushings. So what I like to do is spread them out. You can hammer on them, but they have a tendency of bending the tabs into funny directions. And so what I do is I take a long 1/2-inch bolt that's fully threaded, I use a couple of nuts, and by spreading the nuts apart from each other, it'll spread the tabs back out so you can get your lower control arms in. It's a real easy method of doing it. So now we're going to assemble our front shock and spring combination. So the first thing I like to do is put some anti-seize above the spring seat so that as I turn to adjust the ride height, it'll draw it into the spring seat. We do assemble them with a little bit of anti-seize, but I really like to put an additional amount on for when we go to adjust everything. Also, I'm going to take and put some thrust bearings on here, and when I do the thrust bearings, I like to use a little bit of red grease on the rollers, make some good and lubed so that everything works and makes it a lot easier to adjust our springs. So while we're doing the control arms and the coilover kit, we decided it'd be a great opportunity to put the 1¼ inch hollow sway bar from Performance Online. So as you can see, this sway bar is a whole lot larger than the original stock sway bar, and that's definitely going to make an improvement on cornering for anti-roll control. I've taken the shocks and the springs out of the rear suspension. The next thing I'm going to do is drill my upper holes out to 3/8 of an inch. Currently, it's a loose 5/16 hole, not quite big enough for 3/8. So I drill it to 3/8, and that way you can bolt our upper bracket on for our coilover mount, and then we're going to put our lower brackets on. We're going to use the original trailing arm bolt location, shock location, in order to bolt on our lower shock mount, and then our coilover shock is going to be mounted to the inboard side of the trailing arm. Follow along and see how I do it. We're going to use our spanner wrench to set our ride height. So when I set the ride height, what I usually will do is run it up so that it has 1 inch of preload on the spring as my starting point. And so when I'm talking about 1 inch preload, what I'm going to do is measure from the top of the spring to the bottom of the spring. This starts out as a 12-inch spring, so to put 1 inch of preload on it, it's going to be at 11 inches. That's a great starting point, and then adjust the ride height from there. I've tightened all my 1/2 inch hardware to 75 foot-pounds. Now that I've torqued all my hardware, I've checked everything, set my preload to 1 inch on the spring. On my compression adjustment knob, both front and rear, always start at the #1 position, which is the softest setting. And then on the rebound, on the front, I'm going to tighten my knob all the way down, which is the most firm, back it off 10 clicks. That's going to put it in the middle of my adjustment range, and that's a great place to start on the front. On the rear upper knob, go full counterclockwise, which is also the softest setting. Put 3 clicks of rebound in. That's going to be my preliminary starting point. So next thing I have to do is put the car on the ground, drive the car around the block, see how it feels, finalize my ride height. Once I finalize the ride height, made any more adjustments I need to make on my spring seats, I'm going to tighten the pinch bolt on the spring seat, and that's going to lock my ride height. For more information, check us out at aldanamerican.com. You can also give us a call and talk to our sales department and our tech team. We're here to help you.